one of the things that are, especially in the places which I run, is that we have animals in the facility. They don't only come and visit, but they live in. And the idea is that there's all kinds of pets. There's chinchillas, there's dogs, there's cats, there's parrots, and of course we're all here the dog lovers, so there's also dogs. And residents can come with their own pets. Also, if they can't take care of their own pets, we will take care of them, because we so much believe how important it is for the quality of life of the people. So the whole idea is that it's a setting where pets are very welcomed. And once pets are in the facility, I think it changes the whole atmosphere of the house. And just as Linda said, there's so many research that shows that there's so much more interaction in a home where there are pets. There'll be much more interaction between residents, there'll be much more interaction between residents and staff, between residents and family. And one of the things that make me very happy is when, for instance, I see families come into our facilities and they come with their own dogs. And Yarid was talking about culture issues. I don't know, in Israel we have there's two populations who don't like pets. One is the very religious Orthodox Jews who often have a barrier, and the other one is the Israeli Arabs. And the other day I had a new social worker, a student of social work, come to do her stage of practical work in our facility. And she came the day where we have 100 people with dementia, and in the home we had at the same time 10 dogs. We had one dog of a resident, one service dog, 2 dogs or 3 dogs of workers who came in, and then families who came in with their dogs. And this woman came back to the university and said, I'm not going to do a practical work in this place, because she was so scared of the dogs. But for me, it was such a nice day, not that she didn't want to come, she came in there, don't worry, but the fact that this place was actually full of dogs, and dogs bring in such a good atmosphere and spontaneity, besides the service which they do for the people, if, for instance, giving help, etc. So I will be talking more about the global issues, but I feel like I'll also address the problems and the difficulties and the challenges of having dogs live in a facility, if it's okay with you. Okay, so I'll change a bit my topic. What do we have here? Okay, you know, those who work in geriatrics, you know, Butler, who I think was in the 70s, he was one of the first gerontologists, and he said, the problem is that we've prolonged the life of people, but now we have to find a way of giving them quality. And when we're talking about challenges of geriatrics, the problem is people living longer and longer in sometimes reduced quality of life, with inability to communicate, with an inability to enjoy things which we enjoyed before. And the challenge for us, the workers and the professional staff, is how do we give quality for them? How do we even bond with them? How do we talk about the bonding, but you make a bond with a person who doesn't react to you, who doesn't talk, who sometimes might be even, those of us who are working in the field know I don't have to carry on with it, but this is the biggest challenge. And in that, animals altogether, and dogs especially, are such a good co-worker, because, as you said, they're so non-judgmental to human. They do not ask questions, they do not get disgusted by things, and they can give their companionship going directly to the senses, without all cognitive, whatever. Okay, so please go on. Okay, this is a graph which, can you see it from far away there? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a graph which I try to say, what is the world of the old person? What does it consist of? And what do we as staff and professionals have to do? So the aim of us is this green thing. We want satisfaction of a person from their life, acceptance and acceptance of aging and successful aging. This is what we want. In order to get it, we want the people to be as autonomous as possible, and we want them to have good leisure time, okay? Of course, all these things are so much promoted by pets altogether, and especially by dogs, okay? To get a good quality of life, through having your pet. I have one resident in my facility who has no children. He came in with his wife, who they both met at the opera, the Israeli opera, and she had Alzheimer's disease, and slowly she regressed and died. And for him, the main issue in his life today is to walk the dog and to go with the dog outside and to be with him. He says this is what supported him in his bereavement, just as you had said. And I'll just, we have now Passover is coming over, yeah? Passover of the Jews. And last Passover, he had to go out and he couldn't take his dog with him. By the way, it's a dog that Yariv trained because she started having behavioral problems at the point. And we were doing the ceremony and he had been off. And it was so amazing. We were walking from one level of the home to another level, and each level we did the ceremony. And then we got to the ceremony where he lives, and all the people were waiting for the ceremony. We all go into the dining room, and his dog, Jessie, comes into the dining room. And we do the ceremony, and then there's the festive meal, and we all eat, and without even asking anybody, one of the staff gave, gave some meat for the dog also, because everybody was eating, and so was the dog. The ceremony ended, and we all go back to our, people started drifting off to their rooms, and of course she goes also, and she goes and she waits at the entrance for his room, and I open the door for her, and she goes into his room, onto the bed, and this is, for my eyes, she's not a service dog, she's just his personal pet, but the way she accommodated herself to the place was amazing, and of course what she does to the place. So there was a time where there were behavioral problems, and she was, I don't know how to say, she was... Growled. Yeah, growled at people who were too near him. But on the other hand, there's so much friendship, and the other residents are so proud of this dog and enjoy her so much. And this is a small example of how this small mutton, do you say, is the word mutton?
Mutton, yeah.
Not important dog can help so much in achieving for him the autonomy and the quality of life. Now, when we look altogether at the life of the elderly, of course the health status, the cognitive ability and independence, they are very much, they will define the quality of life of a person, yeah? If a person is demented, if a person is bedridden, of course these are facts which we have to deal with, and they will shed a lot of shade on the quality of life of a person. But also for the very, very deteriorated people, when we work with them correctly and when we work with pets, it can be so beneficial. And for instance, I remember a story with a woman who was so demented that she didn't react to the family at all. But when we put a little dog in her lap, that was the only time where she opened up her eyes and started petting the animal. She didn't react like this to the family, but she reacted to the dog. So having these pets and well-trained pets and dogs is so important for all these areas. On the other hand, what we find out very interesting is what's most important for most elderly. When you ask them what will define their quality of life, so some people say that people will say that it's food, good staff. A research which was done in the United States, I think about 30 years ago, before all the media started growing so well, is, I think, very demonstrative of the importance of it. People said they don't care about the food, they don't care about the stuff, they wanted access to a telephone. Okay? Today, for us, it's so obvious because everybody has cell phones, including the elderly. But imagine 20, 30 years ago, what people said, we want the access to the phone. Because the phone meant the relationship with the family, with the friends who are living outside of the facility. So this is very important. Now imagine again, for instance, grandchildren. And today we usually will have grandchildren coming to visit the elderly. And the more severe the situation is, the grandchildren and the grandchildren don't want to come. It's not sexy to come to an old age home. But if this place has a dog, and if these children can come and play with the dog, for them it's an initiative, not initiative. What? Motivation. Yeah, thanks. motivation to come to the place. Suddenly the place does not look like a hospital with all the smells of the hospital and feeling of the hospital, but it's a live place. And you find that they'll come. And I remember I had, of course, an Australian Shepherd in my setting. I remember some days, you come to work with more energy, with less energy. But each time to come to work and have this dog come to you and do her, immediately a smile comes to your face and immediately you feel so much happier coming. So it's also very rewarding for staff. And it's very good against burnout, which is another topic which we discussed a lot, Linda and I, the burnout of workers. Because once you have the dog and we have another dog. Is it okay that I'm a bit? Yeah. Okay. We have now a toy poodle in our facility. And it's not easy because one of the ladies sometimes thinks that it's her baby. And she walks with her days on her arms, and she doesn't want to give her away. And the other day, it happened with her daughter, that her daughter was very much insulted because she referred to the dog as to the daughter. And the daughter the next week didn't come to visit. So it's very complex. But we've decided, and Yariv and I, that we have to take the dog to sleep in a different room so that she doesn't completely take her over. So we take her to a special,
right?
Where she sleeps at night so that she has also her own space. I think that the workers, when they go and they carry the toy poodle and they take it to the city, it also gives the workers a good feeling. And they like to do it because it's for them also a bit of a relief from work. Okay, so of course, having these pets and the dogs will help with the relationship with the family and with others. Okay, this one won't go into, so let's go on.
Back to butter.
How did this go? Okay. This is a beautiful model. For those who are working geriatrics, this is a doctor called Marian Rabinovich, who's already dead, I'm afraid, but it's a beautiful model, and he calls it the ages of the human. And he says we can look at, and actually it's very interesting to look at any human being and look at him from different ages. You've got the chronological age. Okay, today we know that chronological age doesn't mean much. A person can be, have you read this, the new book of the 100-year-old Norwegian who jumped out of yeah? So a person can be 100 years old and well-functioning, and on the other hand, it can be 40 years old and not well-functioning. So chronological age for us, especially working in geriatrics, doesn't mean a thing. So biological functional age, of course, is very important. Cognitive age, emotional age, and social age. Now you can immediately do the connection how dogs can help us with different people who are not that advanced in each one. So functional age, Yariv said how, for instance, we can be helped by dogs to have people walk. I have one person who's, you say he's, הוא לא משוטט, הוא pacer, yeah? Pacing, yeah. A person who does pacing. Can you imagine if that person does pacing and he does it with a dog? It looks completely different, it feels completely different. Even a person who strolls, and he strolls with the dog, it's a completely different atmosphere to it. There's a reason for it, okay? So all these things can be helped so much by the dog. Cognitive age. I think you spoke about for people's dementia, the anchor that the dog brings into a life. The fact that the dog wakes you up in the morning, says to you, you have to do this, that, or the other. Okay? It's a very important anchor. When we do work with people's dementia in a group, and we can do mathematics games with the dogs, with how many barks did the dog bark, with all kinds of things, it stimulates the cognitive skills in a much nicer way than if we would do it as a teacher and students, which sometimes happens in these facilities, yeah, where the activity worker is standing there, sometimes very frustrated because it's very difficult to get an interaction with the people. But if you have a dog in this setting, the dog brings up a whole new life to things, and the whole atmosphere just changes. Emotional age, of course, especially people who are more needy, who are in a younger emotional age. Sometimes it is so much easier to connect to a dog than to a human being. Yeah, all of us, yeah, I think, believe it, otherwise we wouldn't be in the room. So, especially to those people who may have even trouble, difficulties connecting to people. Often, Levinson was one of the first people who wrote about pet-assisted therapy. He started because he managed to connect to one of his clients through his dog, which he didn't manage to connect in therapy in any other way. So for those people with the problems in emotional age, again, the dog is so wonderful. And the fact that the dog doesn't get offended by us, again, is very, very important. Social age I won't go into today, but it's a very interesting model. To those in geriatrics who would like to learn more about it, I'll be very happy to tell you more about it. So, the challenges for us as workers, as professionals, of course, the headline is, of course, quality of life. Peace with oneself, which I think you spoke about. Meaning of life. Again, the meaning of life and feeling of self-advocacy and being important can be so much promoted by a dog. And this is one of the things we have to do all together in our facilities. This is one of our biggest problems. How do we keep people feeling good with themselves when they can't do so many things and when workers don't have time? I just heard that, for instance, in Holland, I don't know if it happens yet, they time the time of a shower. Have you heard that? They time the workers, how long did they take to make a shower of a person, because everything is now measured, economically. So how do you keep a person feeling good about themselves when everything becomes so much like a line of assembly? Yeah? How do we keep the quality of life of these people? I think this is one of our biggest aims and biggest frustrations often. So self-image and autonomy, relationship with family and others, which I mentioned, interaction with community, which I think Yariv addressed a little bit, present time full of meaningful activities. I don't want, I'm going on, okay. Of course, we all believe in animal-assisted therapy, but we have to look at all the other ways that we can promote the quality of life. I'm an expressive art therapist, and I believe very much in working with different therapies to get people in touch with themselves, to get people to express themselves, to connect between people. And I think that in geriatrics, again, it's very easy to bring a lecturer who will give a lecture, but then the residents will sit and they'll be very passive, and we also won't, we will not do what we have to do, because people have to be active in order to also sustain their abilities. So we have to do more circles of group work, of individual work, of sharing things together. And we will use all these different methods to do so. A very interesting thing that we're doing today is I often bring together residents and their family members, their caregivers, yeah? And it's so amazing to see sometimes, children who don't have even a good contact with their parents, but when we will work through the arts or through dance, through movement, through voice, we can get to a new interaction. And suddenly people learn new things about themselves which they didn't know about themselves.
No.
So it's a very good way of working. For those of you working in facilities, think about it. To start initiating groups and activities of both family members and residents. And of course, in all these rooms, in all these activities, if you will have a dog inside, some of the research shows that all groups that have a dog inside are much more successful than groups that don't have a dog inside. Just the atmosphere that the dog brings into the room, spontaneity, the fact also that if I'm, for instance, in a bad feeling in the frame, I'll go and pet the dog and it will relax me. It's very, very important. So having the dog as a regular part of the facility, come into the groups, do things. Sometimes they'll just sit there and do nothing, and sometimes they'll be active, depending on what we want of them. Oh. Okay, no, it's all right. Okay, go on. I can take it. If it's okay with you, I'd like to tell you, because I probably won't be meeting you again, I'd like to tell you the new initiative which we've started in our home, and that is working with I'm a dog service, as I've said. That's why I got us to animals and to dementia care, because I think working with touch, working with non-verbal communication, working with eye contact, and working with the voice. And we started a very interesting work now, where we work with the voice with people who do not speak anymore. People who do not speak and who either are completely silent, or people who shout and who scream. And we started working with them with voice and movement and touch. And this is one of the most amazing things which I've been doing this year, and very inspiring as a therapist, where, for instance, I have a woman who constantly shouts, and I started shouting together with her. And so shouting together with her, I can manage to change the shouting, and I can manage to relax her and connect with her. And the other day, just before I came, she was shouting, she was screaming, and she screams until sometimes the neighbors call the police because they say that we're abusing her. And one day it happened so beautiful, the police came and they found us in the group singing with her. And I was going to, these are horrible names, I was going, to the neighbors, yeah. So she was screaming her head off, and I couldn't stay with her that longer because I also have to run the facility. So then I took her with me to my office. And through the connection and the bond which we managed to create, I think through the shouting, singing, I managed to relax her, and then she sat with me in the room, and she was so happy and content, and she ate a sandwich, and everything looked so much different. So what I'm aiming to is that we have lots of challenges in working with the elderly, especially with the very, very old or with the very, very demented, and bringing all together animals, not only dogs, but especially dogs into the facilities will change the whole atmosphere, and will enable us as therapists to reach many, many goals. If it's cognitive goals, emotional goals, functional and movement, not movement, how do you call it? If you want people to move, mobility with the very, very ill, and also with people on higher levels where we can really connect. Or if they're very, one of the terrible things I think is when people are in a facility and are very lonely. Those people with the very low, maybe social age, who cannot connect to people. And to feel lonely when you're among people, I think is the loneliest thing. In Hebrew there's a saying, o chevruta o mituta, or socialization or death. And sometimes people cannot connect to people, but they can connect to pets, especially to dogs. And then they don't feel so isolated. So, to sum it all up, dogs are amazing. And they can be of great use to us. And there's many ways where we can work with dogs, either service dogs or lap dogs or any dogs. But of course, the more educated the dogs are, and the more educated we are in how